Oh, how it feels so nice to be able to drive this thing here and be able to drive it home. As you guys know, we finally finished up the Subaru Evo conversion. So if you guys are new to the channel or new to this build, this is a 2004 WRX with the STI kit with the Evo 9 front end. And I pretty much bought this thing simply only to do this build. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the total money spent on the Subaru WRX. I haven't tallied it up myself. I've kind of done like a rough estimate, but this is going to be to the bone. I'm going to be missing a few things, you know, like random gaskets or, you know, little RTV, you know, stuff like that along the way. But for the most part, these are all the big ticket items that I've spent so far. And I still have a couple more things I want to buy. So let's start it off with the car itself. So initially I wanted to buy a cheaper Subaru WRX wagon. And that was simply because the sedans are just so expensive when you look them up. And the prices for these things are going up as we speak. And it was just really, really cool to find a sedan with a STI body kit under a wagon price. So that's pretty much why I went with the sedan. I simply found it for an amazing deal. I believe I got an amazing deal on it. So I initially bought this car for $3,400. I actually spent $3,300 on it, but I added in gas and Magnus's time for taking me out there, which is $100. And yeah, so I spent $3,400 on the bone stock, pretty much bone stock blah-by Subaru WRX. The only modifications that it had onto it was the BC coilovers that were C's that were pretty much useless to me, which is one of the reasons why I bought the car, because it had coilovers on it. It saved me a little bit of money. Next things on the list are going to be the Evo front end. Surprisingly, the Evo parts were so expensive. I didn't really tally it up beforehand because, first of all, I couldn't even find any parts. But I thought, hey, if I got the car for so cheap, you know, the Evo front end can't be that bad. So let's start it off with the Evo 9 bumper. I got a steal on this thing because it was cut out down here for an intercooler. I had to cut it more to fit my intercooler, but I spent $300 on this Evo 9 bumper. I didn't know too much about bumpers at the time, and I found out people with Evo 8s want the Evo 9 bumpers, but in my case, I want an Evo 8 bumper just so it hides some stuff that is in the Subaru world, like that frame rail and some other stuff. I think the Evo 8 bumper will do a lot more to this front end conversion. The most expensive part of the front end were these headlights. So you can see that there's a little bit of moisture getting in them because I don't really have the ballast for these headlights. But with no ballast, I spent $800 on these headlights. And I guess in the Evo world, that's a pretty good deal. These can go upwards to $1,000. And as much as they have condensation in them, they're actually in really, really, really good condition. No broken tabs or nothing. So $800 for the headlights is pretty steep. The next thing that I bought was actually a pretty good deal, was the hood. This is an OEM replica hood. It has a carbon fiber over fiberglass, and I got this hood for $200, which is a steal. The same guy I bought this hood from had an OEM hood for $350, but I thought, you know, why does it matter if I get an OEM one or not? This one looks literally identical to an OEM. The only thing different is that it is fiberglass and carbon fiber, and I didn't really care. So I saved that $150, got this hood for $2 bones. So the next big thing that I had to buy for this car was the fenders, and the fenders I got for a pretty good deal. They can go up to $1,000. I paid for my tuner $550 for both front fenders. You guys know I cut Evo fenders in half and I put them onto the Subaru WRX fenders. So it is half Subaru, half Evo, and I think it looks pretty good after the conversion. But these fenders will never be worth money to somebody else unless they're trying to do an Evo front end, or they'll probably stay on this car till the end of time. Next thing up, I paid $1,200 for Evar to do all the body work on this thing, and you can see that it just turned out immaculate. And there was also some body work done in the rear, but $1,200 total for all the body work done, which is the whole fender creation, the brackets for the hood, bracket for the headlight, stuff like that. That came out to $1,200. And there was also a huge dent back here. He fixed that. And look at that. I think that was worth every penny. All right, Magnus wants to show a fresh tub of grease unboxing.
Check it out.
Oh, goodness. Nice, it's got a little stamp in there. So next thing up is that I paid 360 bucks for a tune, and this is before I got my turbos, my fuel system, everything like that. I paid 360 bucks because the car was running like absolute dog crap. From that tune, I found out that I needed to get a new turbo, get new lines, get all the fuel stuff to run the new turbo. Just because that turbo was so junk, there was no point in putting money into that. So I'm into the new turbo, about 750 bucks. The turbo is a lot cheaper, but I blew up one turbo. I got one turbo stolen, and I had to get a bunch of lines made for another turbo. So yeah, I am into this turbo a lot, which I could have been only into it around $300, but me not knowing what I'm doing cost me around 750 bucks. So I spent $100 on this little mini battery, which I couldn't run on a normal size battery because the Evo headlight was bumped up right up against it. So 100 bucks on that new little battery. I spent 80 bucks on the HKS blow-off valve. I got that for a pretty good deal. I spent 120 bucks on the fuel pump and the 1000cc injectors. And I got BCs again. Even though the ones that came on the car were junk, I still went with BC. I spent a total of $500 on those. I got these wheels for an extremely good deal. I traded the stock wheels, which I value at around 200 bucks, plus 100 bucks for these wheels. So let's just say I'm into these about 300. These wheels are worth a lot more than 300. I'd say they're worth about 700, 800, but I'm into them about 300, which looks pretty good for the cost. And then last but not least, the wrap. The wrap was 580 bucks, and with tools and little knives and stuff like that, let's just say 600. And this turned out good. The only thing crappy about the wrap is that I literally used every single inch of wrap. There's not one piece of scrap wrap sitting at the shop that I could just use just to mess around with. I use literally every single piece. So I haven't added it all up, but the total is right here. It's crazy because I really thought I was gonna only be into this build like 7 grand, and I know it's much, much more than that. But I think at the end of the day, for however much I'm into this thing, nothing will be worth driving this thing around. My own creation. But there's a few things I want to still do to this car, and I want to do it soon. Just because I just finished this car the other day, like actually driving. Now I'm ready to order the stuff that I've always wanted to. I don't like how this wheel has 0 camber, almost positive camber. So I'm gonna run a little bit of camber, which I can because these coilovers are slotted, so I can run a little bit more camber. And then add a spacer. You can see that the rear fitment is pretty flush. I like that. But the front definitely needs a spacer and some camber, because I just don't like the way that looks. I think it just looks weird. The lowness looks good, but the poke needs to be messed with. I definitely want to get, for body parts, I want to get the little rear STI valances because it would just look perfect with the side skirts. Patch up some wrap. You can see that all the silver is showing right here. A lot of silver is showing in the side skirt pockets like that. Yes, okay, yeah, that's another huge thing. So clears on this thing is a must. Surprisingly, in the Subi world, more people want these taillights than the Hawkeye taillights that you could clear really easily. I don't know why, but I think with this color, maybe it's because a lot of Subis don't come red. Yeah. But with red, these taillights they're not it. They're not it. I think that's one of the main reasons why I don't like the rear of this car. The wing spices it up, but the taillights need to go. So if you guys wanted to buy a Subi Evo, it's probably be around the same amount of money, but you need the craziness in your brain, right? You notice anything? I ripped off the banner up here and it looks a lot better, I think. I think the banner made it look a little rice, but now it looks correct now. Peace.